I think people can easily fall victim to, well, it auto schedules, don't go over your logs. I go over every single element, even though it auto schedules, to make sure the flow is right.
This week on How to Radio, I'm talking to Michelle Lewis, who is the music director and morning show host at FM 100 in Memphis. Something I've always wanted to do is be a music director. And then I started learning how to do it and what it takes and realized I am not the guy that you want as a music director or a programmer. I just don't belong in management. But I've always wondered what it's like to be a music director. What are the things that we don't know about? How easy is it? How hard is it? What is it that you do all day? So I reached out to Michelle and she said, absolutely, she'd love to come on the show. So here's Michelle Lewis telling us all how to be a music director. So what is it that a music director does? We'll start at the very beginning.
At the bare minimum, the music director is always scheduling music logs. So you'll, at the bare bones basics, be a music scheduler. You'll have some program that you're scheduling it on, whether it's Selector, Media Base, doing that every single day. Also, on top of that, depending again on how involved you are, it depends on where you are at the station. You'll be talking to music reps, taking call times with them, talking to them as they work records. Also, that ties into if your station has a listener lounge or a showcase, you'll be involved in that as well. And then you'll be talking to the program director weekly as you're making music changes. You get together and kind of as a team, take a look at music overall, looking at spins, looking at what's doing well, what's not doing so well, looking at rotations and deciding what needs to come in and what needs to go out, what's kind of at its peak and what's kind of burnt and over and done with.
So day one, I'm coming in, I've just got the music director position. What's the first thing I need to know about being a music director?
Every person, not just programmer, but every person has a different philosophy when it comes to programming. So I would say the first thing you need to know is, how does your program director like to program? And I would have a meeting with him or her, sit down and say, okay, there are some rules when you schedule music. What's your flow? High tempo, low tempo, any males or females back to back? How many can you do as a max? How many can you do as a minimum? Some programmers have a rule where they don't like you playing 3 or 4 females back to back. So get into the clocks. I'd want to get right into my clocks, look at it, be very familiar with what I'm scheduling and what genres or years my songs are going into. I would be very familiar with the songs I'm playing. I'd want to know my entire music category and how and why my program director has it set up the way that they do.
What are some of the programs that you use to schedule music?
So when I first started, it was actually Selector. And I loved Selector. So I remember when I came to my current job, we were actually on Selector and switched to Media Base, and I threw a fit and I'm like, oh my gosh, I hate change. It's the worst thing ever. But then you realize there's more than one way to schedule music, and there's several programs out there. Selector and Music Master are really the two main ones that I've seen and utilized and worked on.
How would I learn this program without becoming a music director? Is there a way that you know of that I can download it on my computer and play with it?
I personally never did that. I learned once I got in there and was fortunate to have somebody show me and teach me. But the irony is now I'm very big on finding a solution to the problem instead of bringing a problem to the table. So now, as I've been in the business, if there's something I can't solve or if there's something I want to look at or play with in the clocks and I don't know the answer to, I'll go to YouTube, and it floors me and blows my mind that, yes, absolutely, you can YouTube or Google and you can look up tutorials and easily become familiar. You might not physically have your hands on the program and doing it, but it's just amazing how so much has changed since I've entered the business.
What kind of rules are you talking about? What are rules in the music directing?
So that's one that also changes by programmer to programmer, PD to PD. So the first rule that I mentioned earlier was there are some programmers that will say, you know what, to have a good flow, we need to have a balance between male artists, female artists, and groups. So you'll come across music directors, APDs, and PDs that say, okay, well, here are my rules for that. Some PDs will say, I only want 2 females playing back to back. If you go into 3 females, then it's not really so balanced. Let's get a male in there. Let's get a group in there. Other rules that you'll often find are genres, right? So One that I'm dealing with right now is there's a lot of country songs in the past couple of years that have crossed over to Hot AC, like Maren Morris and Dan and Shay. So we'll say, okay, well, let's be cognizant of the fact that we're Hot AC and we're not country. So let's put a rule in there that we shouldn't really play two country songs back to back, because the last thing we want to think or have somebody think when they change the station or get to or land on our station is that we're a country station. So we'll put a rule in there saying no country artists back to back. And what that means is when my computer does its magic and it schedules, it will flag me and say, you can't put this song here because you have a country song before it. And it will tell me to go to a different song and place a different song there. That's another rule. We also have artist separation rules. So when an artist decides I'm going to come out with a boatload of music, I'm looking at you, Justin Bieber, Ed Sheeran, those kind of artists, I want to make sure that I'm not playing them back to back. So we'll put an artist separation rule in there saying that makes sure that there's separation so that Justin Bieber won't be playing 5 minutes later into Justin Bieber. When those rules hit an issue, it will flag me in the middle of an auto schedule, stop the automatic schedule. Manually, I will then go in there, change those, and it will continue to auto schedule until there are no more problems that I manually have to fix. Now, once I get the entire day auto scheduled with all the manual fixes, I still think it's very important, which is one of my biggest, I think, loves about being a music director, is I think people can easily fall victim to, well, it auto schedules, don't go over your logs. I go over every single element, even though it auto schedules, to make sure the flow is right. I don't want a slow song going into another slow song and putting somebody to sleep. I don't want 18 million upbeat songs and there's no variety. So I still, even though it auto schedules, go through every single element individually, also manually change my sweepers to make sure that they lay or don't overlay over songs that I do and don't want them to overlay to. So even though it does auto schedule, I think being a part of being a great music director and doing your due diligence is manually going over every element in your log.
With so many things that have been automated over the years now, especially in radio, and there's, possibly one music director for 20 stations, or there's people that don't know what they're doing that auto schedule and things like that. What are some of the mistakes, other than not going through the log afterwards, that you see a lot of music directors making?
That is for sure the biggest one. Another mistake that I do see often is lack of communication. I touched on it before, not just getting with your PD in the beginning when you obviously land the job, but constantly checking in with your program director about conversations that are had with the reps, for example, because it can be something as simple as, you're talking to one rep about a song that's doing really well, and they're asking you, hey, is this something that you can see going in this week? And you can easily just go, oh yeah, absolutely. I love, the song. I think it's very easy to add. And then you have a conversation with a program director that you're working for, and they're like, why would you tell them that? Like, we're not even close to adding that. So you have to be on the same page. And oftentimes what I see is the mistake of music directors just not being on the same page with their program director. And again, I say team a lot because it is a team. You have to know and be on the same page with music, and you have to sit down and have music meetings and have conversations. And I know a lot of people that don't have those meetings with their program directors about music.
Yeah.
And when you go and talk to your reps, for example, who are pitching you on stuff, you're just flying at the seat of your pants. Like, you don't know what you're saying. You need to be able to speak not just for you and the station, but you need to speak for your programmer as well. Part of my job is, like you say, there are PDs that have multiple stations that are doing a lot. So my responsibility is to take a little bit of that workload off my program director and make their job better and easier and also more efficient. So if I can't speak for that program director, I'm not doing my due diligence either.
When you bring up the record reps, it's a side of the things that I never knew about as far as being a music director. So tell me how that process works. Why are there record reps? What are they pitching to you, and how's that all get added in?
So how that works is normally you set up call times. I do it once a week for them to call you. Normally that never happens. They always call you whenever there's something working, which is
Yeah.
fine. So part of being a music director as well is being ready and able to pick up your phone and just speak when you need to speak. And they will call and work you when there's a project, or they have a new artist that they are really, really just working on building that isn't a Lady Gaga, that isn't an Adele, that isn't a Bruno Mars, that they want to be the next Lady Gaga or Adele. So normally, when I'm hearing from reps weekly, it's because they're checking in on songs we already have of theirs or artists that we already have of theirs that we're already playing, and they're checking in to see, well, how's it doing for you? Is it doing well in research? Can you see this moving up, or are you taking it out? Is everything okay? I'm just checking. It's a lot of that every week. When they aren't calling me weekly, it's because they randomly have something pop up like, hey, we just signed this new artist. We would love for you to hear this artist, and we really believe in this artist, and it's a project, and they'll work that artist. If it's not that situation, it's normally, hey, Taylor Swift dropped a surprise album midnight. Here's the single. I'm going to tell you everything I just learned in the past 24 hours. Go.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of everything, which I love because I'm never bored. Another hard thing about a music director, there's so much amazing music that so many people don't even get the chance to hear.
Yeah.
That's hard too.
Yeah, I can imagine you get songs months in advance. Like, how do you control yourself? Because obviously, with the new digital age, you have to fight this whole, like, everyone has access to music all the time. They've heard it before you even hear it as a music director. Like, how do you control yourself on when to release things and put
Uh,
them on the air?
I literally go into a corner and cry when my program director tells me no. I'm just kidding. No, it's honestly, it's just a lot of, radio has changed over the course of several years. It just has. So there are a lot of factors that go into play. And now in today's age with radio, an artist being familiar really helps. So when it's a situation like, hey, Pink or Katy Perry or Maroon 5 are dropping a new song, you can almost place your money that a hot AC station is going to play it because Pink, Maroon 5, these are artists that people know and people love. But when you get a name that's not so popular, you have to go, okay, well, and this is a different with genres too. When I talk about hot AC versus CHR, CHR is very quick to add a lot. Pop stations will add a lot because that's their format. In hot AC, as a music director, I have had to learn how to be patient because hot AC is slower to add things. Hot AC does well with things that are familiar. So it's really just a matter of sitting, waiting, being patient, watching. At least that's what works for us. Letting an album or a song, for that matter, warm up and looking at all those things that I was saying before, like streams and sales is another thing, and research. The beauty of research is you can put people in a room and play 20 seconds of a song and they can say, I hate this song or I love this song. So those are the things that really determine the ad. We never look at one thing. We always look at the big picture. So it's really, the answer to your question is patience.
Not everybody gets research. I've worked at companies where they laugh at you for even saying the word, and I'm sure a lot of people watching feel the same way. So, what advice do you have for people that don't have research on how to choose which songs?
That's a great question. When I started, I did not have research, and I worked with a program director where we were just like, okay, well, you know, this is different for every programmer too. I can tell you what I personally do when I go to my program director, both currently and in the past when I did not have research. I'll go with a story. So I always look for the story. And what I mean by that is, okay, I have no research, nothing to go off of if this song is amazing or not, except for I love it or I hate it. And you have to be very careful about that too, because just because you don't like a song doesn't mean everybody else will love it.
Yeah.
So I always go for what's available to build a story. So for me, what does that mean? That means I'll go to Shazam. I still have Shazam on my phone, and I'll look at what's charting in the United States, and I'll see what's doing well in certain cities or overall in the country. I'll cross and see, okay, well, is this doing well abroad as well? So I'll look at my resources like Shazam. I'll go to YouTube and go, okay, well, what's the song they're playing? Let me see how many people have been checking it out on YouTube, because YouTube is the second biggest search engine behind Google.
Yeah, and I think it's the number one way people discover music now.
Absolutely. So why not go to YouTube? And I look at the views and I look at the comments and I take an overall consensus and I build that all into my Shazam reports. And then I'll go to other places where people can honestly buy their music, and there are fans, hardcore fans, that still do that, you
Yeah.
know. And I'll look at sales that are available. This is public knowledge. And I'll build a story that way. And I'll go to my program director, and I have in the past where I didn't have research, and I'll say, look at how many people have Shazam this song. There's over 4 million things on YouTube. Look at all the positive comments. Look at all the interaction. This person has something here. And it's a gut feeling too. And when you mix all those things together, just it's a feeling that, you know, I would say is a gut mixed with research and facts that you can easily back up. I would just say use what you have available. We're so fortunate to have so much technology. I mean, people might laugh at me that I still use Shazam, but I love my Shazam. Like
Yeah.
I'll look at stats all day.
Where do you see music directing going with all the technology and all this access to music? It's getting harder and harder for music directors to be ahead and be like on top of what the kids are listening to. So where do you see your position going in the future?
I think there's a lot of unknown right now, right? We're all kind of facing that. I've always been asking that question since I've started this business, because there have been jobs where I've just been a glorified music scheduler, and I thought I was a music director, and I would just sit there and schedule music logs all day long and had the MD title, and then was fortunate enough to go work at other places, like the place I'm working now currently at FM 100, where I have a program director that supports me and says, okay, I'm going to teach you A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you're going to do all this stuff. And I'm like, I never did any of this stuff in my other place. So I think that there's always been that fear out there for a music director that it can go to that, right? Where a company could hire a bunch of glorified music schedulers that just, they all sit in one big cubicle, at least this is how I imagine it in my head, and they're just doing music logs all day long and shipping it out to X amount of stations, and they're playing the same playlist, which some of that actually kind of happens a little bit right now. Let's be honest. So I think that like a big concern that music directors might have is, well, could that be the future? Could that be, I just sit in a room and I'm scheduling these music and I can still do the sound of the station, but this is going to be the sound of 25 stations in my company, and I'll end up sitting in a room. I'd like to hope and think, and I truly don't think that that's going to be the case, because music is ever evolving and constantly changing. And the one thing I love about where I'm at now is we're live and we're local and we've got people in the building. And part of, for me, what made me fall in love with music is the sound of a station. Every station should be different. And I truly believe that people in radio and in the industry will see that. I think people would be burnt out if you just were stuck in a room scheduling music. You would lose all the personality behind a radio station. You truly would. And you would not be able to keep up with what's trending. I log on to TikTok and there's a song that's viral one day and it's gone the next, and there's something new. You need a real person to keep up with those things.
So since music is kind of the main reason everyone listens to the radio station, what do you think we need to do to compete with Spotify and Pandora? What needs to change?
I was going to say, I hope that, you know, obviously music is the chunk and the bulk, but I hope they listen for the personalities too. I'm a little bit biased.
Me too, yeah.
I'm a little biased in the sense that I'm a morning show personality. So my honest answer to that is I think radio needs to be more local. There needs to be something that stands out about that station that, you know, when you are listening to FM 100, you know that not only are they playing amazing music, but also that Ryan and Michelle are on in the morning and they live here and they have been here for X amount of years and they know what we're going through. And we tune in just as much for them as we do to hear the song and the music that they're playing. If you're just going off of, you know, a playlist that you can get on Spotify, like you mentioned Spotify, for example, I can go on Spotify or Pandora, and if I'm in a mood, I can choose what I want to listen to. So I get the appeal. But also you need to be, I've always been a big believer in people are going to want to have as many resources as possible and be exposed to as many things as possible. So I think what needs to change is, and I think we will, or I hope we will see this, and I think we already are, I think music has to change and grow. I think there's been a lot of the same sound recently.
Yeah.
I can tell you that one thing for me that I've noticed a lot is that I'm always looking for something that sounds different so that like the station doesn't go stale. And a lot of music, I think, and I'm not calling any artist out in particular, I just think that a lot of music or a lot of artists produce things that are similar to other artists. And if we can get music that people gravitate to, especially the younger generation, because they are the future, because they're important. Like, you know, we're going to be going and gone, but like if you get like the 18, 19, 20-year olds, if we can get them hooked, I think they're the key. And what has to change is artists are going to have to adapt with that as well. But like, I think we've all been guilty of going, this sounds the same as this song that they just put out, and this, I can't tell this artist apart from that one. So I think that we need to get more diversity in our sound and also be more local on our stations.
Well, Michelle, thank you for taking the time and talking with me about music directing. Like, I've always wanted to do it, and I still don't think I can do it. I can't program either, but it just takes the fun out of radio for me. I just want to focus on the show. But I know, I've always loved music. It's why I got into the business. But so thank you for chatting with me, and I hope someone gets the benefits out of this. If you have any more advice, do you have any more advice for anyone watching that wants to be a music director?
I've always found this, that if you're willing to put in the work, it pays off. And also, if you have any questions, I was always scared to ask questions. I wish I had asked questions so much sooner in my career.
Tell us where we can find you on social media. I know you're big on TikTok. I see your videos all the time. So how do we, I don't even know. I'm going to show my age. Am I interested? Is it at something on TikTok? Like, do you have a username? I don't know how do we find you on TikTok?
Yeah, you can honestly search at Michelle_radio or at Michelle Radio, and I'll pop up on almost every feed for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you don't see it on Michelle Radio, it's Michelle_radio. You'll find me either way.
Okay. And then can people email you if they have any questions about music directing?
I would love it. I love answering questions. So seriously, any questions, concerns, disagreements of anything that I said that you're like, you're wrong, feel free to email me. I love even just talking and debating about stuff. So yeah, go ahead.
All right. What's your email?
It's mlewis, MLEWIS at fm100memphis.com.
Well, thank you again, Michelle. And this was fun. I appreciate it.
No, absolutely. Thank you.